One day I was at Lowe's Hardware with my family, and I saw a solar eclipse display stand with solar glasses. At that time I didn't know much about astronomy, but I've always liked looking at the Hubble Space Telescope pictures and everything like that. But I hadn't started reading about it until recently. So we bought about 16 pairs of glasses that day, just in case we needed them. It was about a month till the eclipse, so we thought we had time to plan our stay. But soon into the search for a place to stay, we realized all hotels were booked. So we finally chose an Airbnb that was way overpriced just because of the eclipse, and we got there a day before the eclipse, and then that night I didn't sleep very well, partly because I was excited, but mostly because the bed was not comfortable. So we woke up at 8 o'clock and got ready for the eclipse, and then we went to the location about a mile away from the path of totality. Totality is the path that the moon's shadow takes across the surface of the Earth. Now, it wasn't until the first stage started that I realized how spectacular this eclipse was going to be. I looked up in awe at the glory of our Heavenly Father when it was a total solar eclipse. And I looked up and I was thinking, this isn't a coincidence of nature, but the perfect design of God. At that point, and with the help of watching some old NASA videos like the space station, the space shuttle, and the moon landing and stuff like that, I decided to build a rocket of my own. When someone thinks of a model rocket, they usually think of model rockets. But people that make a hobby of rocketry know there's something bigger and better. That something is high-power rocketry. The main differences between the two are that the high-power rockets have complicated parachute deployment systems, onboard computers, and much larger engines. Although model rockets can have onboard computers, they have to be very small. You may be thinking, wow, all this stuff sounds expensive. Well, it doesn't have to be a bit costly, but if you have an interest, you can collect parts slowly like I am. The rocket I'm designing is a high-power rocket with all the high-power rocket components. So now I'm going to compare the two. Model rockets are small rockets no longer in length than 5 feet. The engine of the rocket is a black powder component, a black powder mix, and there's an ejection charge in the top that ejects the parachute before the end of the flight. The main difference, and the body of the rocket is usually cardboard because it's the cheapest available material. High-power rockets have bigger engines, bigger parachutes, and bigger bodies. And the bodies are usually fiberglass instead of cardboard because they have to be stronger. The high-power rocket engine has an enormous amount of power compared to the model rocket engine. And the parachute can be 10 times as big. There are 3 certification levels that indicate the amount of thrust that you can use for a certain rocket you are buying. So the first is 144 pounds, the second is 1,150 pounds, the third is 9,210 pounds. So for the first, you can buy a rocket of 144 pounds total impulse or thrust, and you have to complete a written exam to launch that rocket. And then you can go to the second impulse after you've launched at least one rocket, and then launch that one, which has a maximum impulse of 1,150 pounds, and then so on. The largest rocket that an amateur can be used by an amateur has an impulse of 147,000 pounds. This is the rocket that is. It went Mach 5 in 10 seconds and went 73 miles high, or 385,000 feet. And comparing that to the Saturn V rocket, which is the largest rocket ever built in the US and in the world, that rocket had 6 million pounds total cost. The rocket I'm designing is a high-power rocket that will be class 1 or 2. I don't know how powerful the engine will be yet, but it will be made out of 2-inch diameter PVC encased in 3-inch diameter fiberglass body. The engine composition is a 60% granular potassium nitrate and 40% white sugar. With all this power, the rocket nozzle has to be very strong, so I made mine out of concrete from a tutorial on YouTube. An onboard computer will measure the altitude, the speed, flight path, and at the end of the flight, it'll eject the parachute for a safe landing. The one difference between my rocket design and other rockets of the same height or proportions, the difference is that it has fins on the outside of the rocket that will help fix unstable rocket spinning, and you can even set flight path that was set to the board before the flight. That may all sound complicated, but it's only complicated if you make it so. John Carmack said, "Rocket science has been mythologized all out of proportion to its true difficulty." There are tons of resources online. One really good one is Apogee Components. But there's really only one component you need to build a rocket of your own, and that is a powerful desire to do so. After this desire struck me, I started designing rockets. My first design was a 4-foot tall 3-stage rocket. A stage rocket means there's a separation of the rocket to shed weight as it goes higher. But to do this, there has to be a very, very complicated electronic system, and that was beyond my doing. And you have to have parachutes in each stage, so it's more likely to explode. So I started from advice from my older brother, I'm now building a single-stage rocket I showed you earlier, which is 55 inches tall, or 4.5 feet. I started experimenting with engine design and fuel mixtures, and I started with an 8-inch engine design with a horribly designed nozzle that the pressures were all wrong and everything, but it still worked. And we set it up by clamping it to a pole stuck in the ground, and we started to light it, but it wouldn't light. So we finally started to light it, and it was so powerful that it bent the pole that was stuck in the ground, and it was so loud that I forgot to start the video camera. But here is a rocket I actually know on video. It's okay if something explodes every once in a while, just if you're far enough away. Winston Churchill said, "Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. So never give up."